Hello BookTube. I've been to the library and I have a 9-book haul. Um, so I took the bus to the library today. It was a pretty pleasant trip both ways. The bus did take a detour to a part of Hewitt, which is a small town between McGregor and Waco that I hadn't been in at least over 20 years. And so I was pleasantly surprised that this grocery store that had been there forever is still there. So, yeah, that was interesting. So at the library, I had several books to pick up. I picked up 2 other books, and then I picked up some books for my mom and um, read while I was there waiting for the bus. So it was a pretty pleasant late morning and early afternoon. So let's begin with the books. I will talk about the books that I'm not going to be judging first, and then I will do the books that I will be judging. So the first book up is Black Wave, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and the 40-year rivalry that unraveled culture, religion, and collective memory in the Middle East by Kim Ghattas. So this is a new release, and I will read you the blurb on the cover. Seamlessly weaving history, geopolitics, and intimate storytelling, Kim Ghattas tells the gripping and largely unexplored story of the rivalry between Saudi Arabia and Iran, a conflict born from the sparks of the 1979 Iranian Revolution, fueled by American policy, and which Ghattas argues is at the heart of the Middle East's modern turmoil. With vivid storytelling, extensive historical research, and on-the-ground reporting, Ghattas dispels accepted truths about a region she calls home. Sunni Saudi Arabia and Shia Iran, now mortal enemies, were once allies and twin pillars of U.S. strategy in the Middle East. But all that changed after 1979, distorting and deploying religion in a competition that went well beyond geopolitics. Each side proceeded to strategically feed intolerance, suppress cultural expression, and encourage sectarian violence from Egypt to Pakistan. This ongoing war for cultural supremacy has led to Iran's fatwa against author Salman Rushdie, the assassination of countless intellectuals, the birth of groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon, the September 11th terrorist attacks, and the rise of ISIS. Ghattas introduces us to a riveting cast of characters whose lives were upended by decades of geopolitical drama, from the Pakistani television anchor who defied her country's dictator, to the Egyptian novelist thrown in jail for indecent writings, to journalist Jamal Khashoggi, who was murdered in Saudi Arabia in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul in 2018. Black Wave is an intimate and sweeping history of the region and will fundamentally alter our understanding of the Middle East. And hopefully y'all saw that on camera. If not, sorry. I'll try to do better on the next one. But definitely, I am really looking forward to this one. Next, we have American Manifesto, Saving Democracy from Villains, Vandals, and Ourselves by Bob Garfield. As is often observed, Trump is a symptom of a virus that has been incubating for at least 50 years. But not often observed is where the virus is embedded, in the psychic core of our identity. In American Manifesto, Saving Democracy from Villains, Vandals, and Ourselves, popular media personality Bob Garfield examines the tragic confluence of the American preoccupation with identity and the catastrophic disintegration of the mass media. Garfield investigates how we've gotten to this moment, when our identity is threatened by both the left and the right, when e pluribus unum is no longer a source of national pride, and why, when looking through this lens of identity, the rise of Trumpism is no surprise. Overlaying this crisis is the rise of the Facebook-Google duopoly and the filter bubble of social media, where identity is insular and immutable. But fear not. WNYC's On the Media co-host Garfield has ideas about how we may counter the forces of fragmentation, the Manifesto itself, 6 steps to take to reassemble our fractured society. A quick, fascinating read, American Manifesto offers not only a vision of a country in extremis, but also a plan for how to address the ways in which our democracy is imperiled. Provocative, profound, and sometimes hilariously profane, American Manifesto is a call to action like no other. Sounds interesting. And keeping up with the political theme, sorry about that, we move to Why We're Polarized by Ezra Klein. America's political system isn't broken. The truth is scarier. It's working exactly as designed. In this book, journalist Ezra Klein reveals how that system is polarizing us and how we are polarizing it, with disastrous results. The American political system, which includes everyone from voters to journalists to the president, is full of rational actors making rational decisions given the incentives they face, writes political analyst Ezra Klein. We are a collection of functional parts whose efforts combine into a dysfunctional whole. In Why We Are Polarized, Klein reveals the structural and psychological forces behind America's descent into division and dysfunction, neither a polemic nor a lament. This book offers a clear framework for understanding everything from Trump's rise to the Democratic Party's leftward shift to the politicization of everyday culture. America is polarized, first and foremost, by identity. Everyone engaged in American politics is engaged, at some level, in identity politics. Over the past 50 years in America, our partisan identities have merged with our racial, religious, geographic, ideological, and cultural identities. These merged identities have attained a weight that is breaking much in our politics and tearing the bonds that hold this country together. Klein shows how and why American politics polarized around identity in the 20th century, and what that polarization did to the way we see the world and one another, and he traces the feedback loops between polarized political identities and polarized political institutions that are driving our system toward crisis. This is a revelatory book that will change how you look at politics and perhaps at yourself. Sounds very, very interesting. And one more political book. The Age of Entitlement, America Since the 60s by Christopher Caldwell. Christopher Caldwell has spent years studying the liberal uprising of the 1960s and its unforeseen consequences. Even the reforms that Americans love best have come with costs in wealth, freedom, and social stability that are staggeringly high and have been spread unevenly among classes and generations. In The Age of Entitlement, Caldwell reveals the real political turning point of the past half-century, taking readers on a roller coaster ride through Playboy magazine, affirmative action, CB radio, leveraged buyouts, iPhones, OxyContin, Black Lives Matter, the internet cookies. In doing so, he shows that attempts to address the injustices of the past have left Americans with 2 different ideas of what it means to play by the rules. Essential, timely, and hard to put down, The Age of Entitlement is a brilliant and ambitious argument about how America got to its current period of conflict. So, for those of you who also watch the History Shelf, she's been reading this book off and on, I guess, over the past week or so, and has not been getting along well with it, I would think. So I'm going to give it a read here sometime and see what I make of it. And finally, and getting away from politics and history, we go to writing comics. Scripting your story ideas from start to finish by Andy Schmidt. So in addition to writing short fiction and novels, I also want to write other forms. If you've seen my library tour videos, I had one very early where I showed my writing books off, and one of them is a book on writing video games. I also want to add comic book writing guides and like television, movies, script writing too. And I know I wanted to get I'm blanking on it now. J. Michael Straczynski's book on script writing and Peter David's book on comic book writing. And I want to check this out and see if I want to add this to the list of comic book writing books I want to get. So I will get to this and report back. Okay. Now we move to the books I will be judging for the nonfiction, for the BookTube Prize nonfiction section. I'm in group F, I think. So I have 4 of the books. I need to pick up The Yellow House and Me, and I will more than likely have to buy them because right now there's like 1 copy of The Yellow House, 2 copies of Me, and 4 requests each, and I have until the end of March to read them, so I will have to buy them. But I do have the other 4 here with me, and I will be reading them over the next month and days. So first up is I like to watch Arguing My Way Through the TV Revolution by Emily Nussbaum. Excuse me. From her creation of The Approval Matrix in New York Magazine in 2004 to her Pulitzer Prize-winning columns for The New Yorker, Emily Nussbaum has argued for a new way of looking at TV. In this collection, including 2 never-before published essays, Nussbaum writes about her passion for television, beginning with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the show that set her on a fresh intellectual path. She explores the rise of the female screw-up, how fans warp the shows they love, the messy power of sexual violence on TV, and the year that jokes helped elect a reality television president. There are 3 big profiles of television showrunners: Kenya Barris, Kenji Kohan, and Ryan Murphy, as well as examinations of the legacies of Norman Lear and Joan Rivers. The book also includes a major new essay written during the year of Me Too, wrestling with the question of what to do when the artist you love is a monster. More than a collection of reviews, the book makes a case for toppling the status anxiety that has long haunted the idiot box, even as it transformed. Through it all, Nussbaum recounts her fervent search over 15 years for a new kind of criticism, one that resists the false hierarchy that elevates one kind of culture, violent, dramatic, gritty, over another, joyful, funny, stylized. I like to watch traces her own struggle to punch through stifling notions of prestige television, searching for a more expansive, more embracing vision of artistic ambition, one that acknowledges many types of beauty and complexity and opens to more varied voices. It is a book that celebrates television as television, even as each year warps the definition of just what that might mean. Next, I have Susanah Cahalan's The Great Pretender. In 1973, a charismatic doctor convinced 8 healthy people to commit themselves to mental hospitals. They had to prove their sanity to be set free. Their undercover mission would change our understanding of madness forever. For centuries, doctors have struggled to define mental illness. How do you diagnose it? How do you treat it? How do you even know what it is? In search of an answer in the 1970s, a Stanford psychologist named David Rosenhan and 7 other people, sane, normal, well-adjusted members of society, went undercover into asylums around America to test the legitimacy of psychiatry's labels. Forced to remain inside until they'd proven themselves sane, all 8 emerged with alarming diagnoses and even more troubling stories of their treatment. Rosenhan's watershed study broke open the field of psychiatry, hastening the closing of institutions and changing mental health diagnosis forever. But as Cahalan's explosive new research shows, very little in this saga is exactly as it seems. What really happened behind those closed asylum doors? And what does it mean for our understanding of mental illness today? An extraordinary new investigative work from one of America's most courageous young journalists, NPR, The Great Pretender not only exposes a startling mystery that lay hidden in plain sight for nearly 50 years, but this masterpiece of narrative history offers a searing, propulsive, and urgent look at the culture in which a single experiment could change the course of modern medicine. Next up, Charged, the new movement to transform American prosecution and end mass incarceration by Emily Bazelon. The American criminal justice system is supposed to be a contest between 2 equal adversaries, the prosecution and the defense, with judges ensuring a fair fight. That image does not match the reality in the courtroom, however. Much of the time, it is prosecutors more than judges who control the outcome of a case. They answer to almost no one and make most of the key decisions, from choosing the charge to setting bail to determining the plea bargain. They often decide who goes free and who goes to prison, even who lives and who dies. The system wasn't designed for this kind of unchecked power, and in Charged, Emily Bazelon reveals how it is the underreported cause of enormous injustice and the missing pieces in the mass incarceration puzzle. Charged follows the story of 2 young people caught up in the criminal justice system. Kevin, a 20-year-old in Brooklyn who picked up his friend's gun as the cops burst in and was charged with a serious violent felony, and Nora, a teenage girl in Memphis indicted for the murder of her mother. Bazelon tracks both cases, exploring every phase of the criminal justice process, from arrest and charging to trial and sentencing, and with her trademark blend of deeply reported narrative, legal analysis, and investigative journalism, illustrates just how criminal prosecutions can go wrong and, more important, why they don't have to. Bazelon shows how prosecution in America is at a crossroads and details the damage overzealous prosecutors can do, and also the second chances they can extend, if they choose, to Kevin and Nora and so many others, allowing them to make things right in their own lives. She follows a wave of reform-minded DAs who have been elected in some of our biggest cities, as well as in rural areas in every region of the country, put in office to do nothing less than reinvent how their job is done. If they succeed, they can point the country toward a different and profoundly better future. In Charged, Emily Bazelon mounts a major critique of the American criminal justice system and tells the story of the movement for change. And finally, Sea People, The Puzzle of Polynesia by Christina Thompson. For more than a millennium, Polynesians occupied the remotest islands in the Pacific Ocean, an enormous triangle stretching from Hawaii to New Zealand to Easter Island, sailing in large double-hulled canoes without the benefit of maps, writing, or metal tools. These ancient mariners were the first and, until the era of European discovery, the only people ever to have reached this part of the globe. Today they are widely acknowledged as the world's greatest navigators. But how did the earliest Polynesians reach these far-flung islands? How did they conquer the largest ocean on the planet? Diving deep into the history of the Pacific, Christina Thompson explores this epic migration, following the trail of the many sailors, linguists, archaeologists, and geographers who have puzzled over this story in a quest to discover who these ancient voyagers were, where they came from, and how they managed to colonize every habitable island in the vast region of remote Oceania. Sea People combines the wonder of pursuit and the drama of a gripping historical puzzle in a vivid tour of one of the most captivating regions of the world. So, now that the library haul is done, I'm going to go ahead and do a quick TBR. So, at the moment, I am currently reading I Like to Watch. This is the one that I started while I was waiting for the bus, and I've continued since I've gotten home. So, unfortunately, since several of these books are new releases, they have requests already set. So I'm going to, after I finish I Like to Watch, I will go ahead and hit them off. So I will get to The Age of Entitlement, Why We're Polarized, Black Wave, Sea People, Charged, The Great Pretender, American Manifesto, and finally, writing comics. Probably in that order, although we shall see. And I will let you know on my next weekly reads. So until then, have a great weekend, BookTube, and I will see you again on Monday.